In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to utilize scriptable objects to create an inventory system, and what tricks you can use to create an extremely versatile system. I will also show off how I have personally used scriptable objects in my projects and how others on my team have utilized them. First, I should answer the question, what is a scriptable object? A scriptable object is a custom data container that can hold virtually any type of data. It can hold text such as a name or a description, numbers like an amount or a cost, and even sprites and full game objects. They are incredibly useful for creating items for your game, as they can be set up to be easily created by others working on the game who didn't originally set up the scriptable objects, such as level designers or game writers. To create a scriptable object, you will need to create a new script in your Unity project. I've named it Items for this demonstration. This script will not derive from mana behavior like other Unity scripts. Instead, it will derive from scriptable object, so remember to change it when you first open the script. Then, let's add some data fields, such as a string for the name, a float for the cost, and another string for the description. This is the most basic form of an item for our game. However, this is just the framework for the scriptable object. It isn't the actual container that you will use. To create a new scriptable object, we need to first add it to the Create menu in the editor. To do this, add this line to the top of your script. Save it, and go back into Unity after it loads, and then right-click in the project window, create, and at the very bottom, you can now see New Item. This will create our scriptable object. I'm going to call it Apple to start. Now you can see your new scriptable object in the inspector with the 3 data fields we gave it. Changing the fields in the inspector will save it to the scriptable object, and it will be consistent every time the scriptable object is used. This is one of the most important properties of scriptable objects. They are universal. Every time you reference this Apple scriptable object, you will have the same item. This is extremely useful, and it means you aren't second guessing where your items are stored or what data you're actually referencing. To showcase this, I'm going to modify the item script to show how universal a scriptable object can be. I've gone ahead and added some more fields to items, as well as made them all private, serialized fields. What this will do is it will allow the scriptable objects to be changed in the inspector, but because the fields are private, they can't be changed by other scripts. However, we can set up accessor methods inside of items so that only scripts with the proper references can change the amount the player has. I've also added a sprite and a game object to items so that each item has a reference to what it will be displayed as. For example, if a new apple is spawned, the game object representing the apple is associated with it, so it can easily be instantiated. The same applies to the sprite, so it can be displayed on the UI for a quest or a shop window. Another example is if the player sells the apple. An apple can then be removed from the player's amount and given to the shop amount, and the cost of the item can be returned so that it can be subtracted from the player's money. These are some of the simpler applications of a scriptable object. Next, I'm going to show you how I and others have used scriptable objects in the game Critical Density. Critical Density is a space-based exploration/visual novel game, so it has a huge emphasis on UI. I've created the inventory system with scriptable objects so that all of our quests, shops, and the player's inventory are consistent. I will start with the scrap scriptable object. Just like before, I've utilized these to hold all of their own relevant data, like their name, cost, and amount. We also have data for how each scrap interacts with specific quests, and information about which scrap do our NPCs like the most. I've used an enum and a custom class to show I've used an enum and a custom class to create a list of which scrap. I've created an enum and a custom class to show how much each NPC likes a specific scrap. This is how they look in the inspector. All of my data fields show right up front, along with the bools that we use, and my custom class containing enums for each NPC. Each scriptable object is held in either a player inventory slot or an inventory slot, which are designed to display all of the information about the scrap, including its sprite. The inventory manager script is where all the information about what the player actually has is stored. By using a hash set for the inventory, a scriptable object is not able to be accidentally added twice to the inventory. This way, the inventory manager keeps track of what types of items are being held, and the individual scriptable objects keep track of how much a player has. You can see when I sell an item, it automatically removes from the player amount and adds to the shop amount. In both the player inventory slot on the left and the inventory slot on the right, there is a reference to the Banjo scriptable object, and the different slots display different information. This system has also allowed us to streamline our save system, as each scriptable object saves its own data as JSON properties that can easily be cleared and loaded as needed. A warning, however, scriptable objects save their data after you exit play mode, which means it is all too common to accidentally keep leftover data in the scriptable object when you don't mean to. Remember to clear out your objects after you test with them. Those are all of the basics about using scriptable objects. Remember, they are highly versatile and are not limited to what I have shown you here. They don't just have to be used for an inventory system. In Critical Density, we use them to hold all of our quest data, and our upgrade system works with scriptable objects. Try and find new and inventive ways to use scriptable objects for your games.